Hey, what is up, everybody? Mark Price here at devslopes.com, and today we're gonna go over the basics of Git so you can get your feet wet here. And why do we even say that phrase, get your feet wet? It doesn't, I don't know. We say a lot of dumb things here in America that don't make sense. Never really think about them. Okay, so what I want you to do is Command space and open up your Finder here, your Spotlight search, and type in terminal. Okay, I'm gonna open my terminal here, which is cool. By the way, if you've ever taken any of my lessons before, you see I change things a lot. I can't look at the same thing for too long. So today we're doing retro style green. Makes me feel like a hacker. Okay, that's just a default, one of the default color options in your terminal. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna go onto the desktop. So we're going to cd onto the desktop. And I'm gonna make a directory, make dir. And let's just call this git fun. Okay, as you can see, it appeared there on my desktop. Make this even bigger for you. And I'm gonna cd into git fun. Okay, so if you're working on a Mac, which you should be if you're developing iOS apps, you already have Git installed, which is great. So how does it work? Well, right now we've got a directory called git fun. Okay, and the purpose of Git is to manage versions of documents, etc. So let's make a document. Let's make a README file. So we're gonna call this readme.md. Oops, we're gonna create one first. Touch readme.md. That will create the file there in our git fun folder. NFILS, it should be right there. Okay, now just for fun, and to make this quick, I'm gonna open up this file using the terminal text editor called Vim. Okay, I will provide you with supplemental resources if you want to get better at learning Vim. So I'm gonna type in Vim and then readme.md, and it's gonna open up the text editor here for Vim, and I'm gonna type in I to go into insert mode here. And what we're gonna do is we're just gonna add some text and make some changes and such, okay? So let's just make a title here. This is a title, okay? And the pound signs, that's just markdown, which you would put in a README file, okay? I'm gonna press escape a couple times and then shift and colon to go into the prompt mode and then X to save and quit. Okay, now watch what happens if I type in git status to see the status of Git. Fatal, not a Git repository or any of the parent directories, okay? So one thing you need to understand is whenever you're working with Git, you first have to initialize that repository as a Git repository or that folder as a Git repository or Git, how would you say? Just initialize it so it can be used with Git, okay? So I found that I do that a lot. I'll start writing code and write a lot of code, and then I'll do git like status, and then because I want to see what changes I made, and then it says this error message here. So don't do that. Otherwise, you could find yourself in a world of hurt if you have any problems. So what you first want to do whenever you are working with Git in your folder is type in git init, okay? Initialized empty Git repository, all right? And it will create an invisible file for you. That .git will be invisible. You won't be able to see it, but it's there, and it's managing now all versions of your file. So now if I type in git status, okay, we've got red, okay? And red means that it's untracked, okay, or uncommitted. In this case, it's untracked. So it says right here, untracked. What does untracked mean? Untracked means Git is not tracking this file. It will not go in your Git repository. So unless you start tracking files, they will not be saved in your Git repository. So the first thing you want to do is add that file. So git add readme.md. Okay, so we just added it using the add keyword. So you go from untracked and then you add it. Okay, then if I type in git status to see the current status, okay, it is now in green. And it says new file readme.md, changes to be committed. So we haven't even committed this file yet, okay? What we've done is we've added it to tracking, so now we're tracking changes, but we haven't committed it yet. And every time you make a commit, it does like a timestamp, bam, and it stamps that version of those changes in your history, and you can go back to it anytime and it will look just the way it did when you did that commit. So let's say we want to commit this, so we save that change I made permanently, that top header I made in that file. So what I'm gonna type here is git commit -m, and -m is a message. You always have to give a message, and then in quotes here, we're gonna say first commit and press enter. Okay, it says one file changed, one insertion, create mode, okay? And let's go ahead and type in git status. Look at that. Nothing to commit, working directory clean. So what's happened is we have now committed that change in history. It is there to stay, okay? And so the rule of thumb here is commit as often as you can. Anytime you make a feature that is complete, it's not good to commit bugs or things like that, but anytime you have a feature that's complete, go ahead and commit it. So it's saved and you can always refer back to it. Okay, so I'm gonna do Command K to clear my screen so you can see it up here now. Okay, so we committed it. And now let's go ahead and make another change. So I'm gonna type in vim and then readme.md to go back in, okay? And I'm gonna go over here to the end. And by the way, if you are an expert at Vim, I'm not. I just know the basics of it to get me around. Some people are experts where you use key commands and jump all over the place, so don't judge. But it's useful to know the basics of Vim so you don't have to go open up a third-party text, UI-based text tool, okay? Just the basics. And so what I wanna do now is I wanna make a second title, okay? So this time we're gonna make a smaller one, okay? And we're gonna say this is a second title. Escape, shift : X to save and quit. Now, what do you think is gonna happen if I type in git status? Any idea? Interesting. Change is not staged for commit. You notice how before it said untracked file when it was read? This time it's not saying untracked. We're still tracking the file, but this time, okay, this time it says modified. Change is not staged for commit. So now it's red saying, hey, you made changes, but you haven't committed them yet, which is really interesting. What if I create another file before I commit this, okay? What if I say touch, and let's say, let's create a JavaScript file. So we're gonna say code.js, okay? And now if I type in git status, interesting. So we now have an untracked file and we have a change that has not been added yet. So they're both red, but they're two different things. Remember, untracked means we're not tracking it, and this other one means we haven't added those changes yet. And you use the same commands for both of these. So when you git add a file, you can also git add that file again whenever there's a change. So if I type in git add and then readme.md, it's not adding it to tracking again like it did last time. This time it's just adding those changes, okay? So same command, but different purpose. So now we're gonna add those changes saying, yes, I want those changes. So git add readme.md. If I type in git status, let me clear this first here, git status. Okay, that is now good. It's in green, changes to be committed, but we still have that untracked file. So now I can add that as well. This time, what I can actually do is a different way of adding files. I can say git add -A, and that will actually add all the files in the directory. So you don't actually have to, all the files that either are untracked or there's changes on, it'll do that, all of them. Now, be careful. If there's something that you don't want added, that could be dangerous. So be very careful. But this is very common for developers to do because when you're usually committing, you usually want all those files. So we're gonna say git add -A, and if I do git status, okay, changes to be committed. We've got the modified readme.md, and then we've got the new file. It's telling me exactly what I did. So the next step is to what? Is to git commit. So git commit -m, and we're gonna say modified readme and added code file, okay? And there we go, 2 files changed, 2 insertions, Command K to clear. And now if I git status, nothing to commit, working directory clean. Okay, this is really cool. So my files are good to go. And what next? Well, let's say that actually that was a bad change. My boss is like, you idiot, why did you add that second header in there? We only needed 1. God. Well, luckily, since I'm using version control, which you should always be using, I can work some magic. I don't have to go into the file and delete it or anything like that. And let's pretend there was 10,000 lines of code. It's a lot different than 1 or 2. I can actually now revert back to a different commit. Okay, so let's say that I don't want that change. All right, so what I can do is I can type in git log. It's gonna talk about all my commits here, okay? Modified readme, okay, that's the most recent one, and then first commit. Do you see why the message is so important on these commits so you can know exactly what you put into them? So my boss says I gotta get rid of that extra line of code. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go back and check out the other code, okay, the first commit. So I'm gonna type in git checkout, What we're going to do is we're actually going to copy the first 7 digits here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Copy that, Command C, okay, and Command V. We're going to git checkout that, okay? You are in a detached head state. You can look around, make experimental changes, and commit them, and you can discard any commits you make in this state without impacting any branches by performing another checkout. If you do want to create a new branch to retain commits you create, you may do so now or later with that command, as you can see right here, git checkout -b. So I'm going to Command K to clear. So this is interesting. Let's look at my folder here. Okay, readme.md. Hey, where's my code.js? Well, since we checked out our previous commit, it doesn't exist anymore. How cool is that? Git, it was smart enough to know when we added that file and we didn't need it. The boss said no, got rid of it, and let's go into this file and make sure it's looking the way we want it to. So vim readme.md. Hey, we only have the one title there. That's awesome. So guess what? Our version control has now checked out our previous version, which is great. It's fantastic. And of course, if I want to keep this, okay, I can put it in a new branch. And we haven't talked about branches yet, but if I type in git branch, right now I'm in a detached state, meaning it's just floating. If I leave it, it's going to disappear. But see how the master's right there? We were working in a branch called master. A branch is like a grouping of code, okay? And I'm going to go more into branches in another video, but it's a grouping of code. So if I want to keep these changes here, I could do something like git checkout -b to create a new branch, and we can call this readme. So readme, let's say 1 line. Okay, and now if I type in git branch readme 1 line, I have a new branch and it has these changes on. Again, if I vim into readme.md, there's only the one there. Escape, shift:\x. Okay, so that's great. Now what happens if I git checkout master? What happens if I switch this branch here? Okay, if I type in ls, my code.js is back. Okay, and if I vim into readme.md, hey, look at that, my other changes are back too. So we successfully have multiple versions of our code. We made a mistake, we reverted back, and we checked that out into a new branch. And so guess what? I've got both changes here. So now the boss is like, you know what? I'm so sorry I yelled at you. I actually did want those changes. Well, just check out master again. It's right there. You didn't have to copy and paste anything. It's all good, all tracked right there in your history. So that's really cool. So some of the basics are, when you first have a new project, you need to do what? Git init to initialize that folder as a Git repository. And of course, it will include all of its subfolders, okay? If you have a project that's really big and then you want a specific subfolder to be tracked but not the whole project, you can do that as well. Whatever folder you initialize, that folder and all its subfolders are going to be initialized. And you can actually have one Git repository that manages a whole repository and folders, and then you can have another one inside of it. So just remember, git init goes from the top down, okay? Doesn't include the folders that are above it. So you initialize your folder so it is ready for Git. Then whenever you create new files, you need to add those files using git add, okay? So git add to add new files. So they are now tracked, because at the beginning they're untracked, okay? And Git knows that. Once you've added a file, okay, you're going to want to commit it or commit multiple files. Whenever you're ready for that feature to be done, okay, or to move on to the next step, you want to commit that stuff. And it doesn't have to be one thing. It could be 10 things. It could be 100 things. But just know the more often you commit, the safer your code will be. But don't commit bugs and don't commit trash. Commit fully working things to an extent, okay? So you git add to add untracked files. Also, when you make changes to files, okay, they're going to become modified and you have to add those as well. So you can either do it by the file name, like readme.md, or you can git add -a. Another thing you can do is git add dot, and that will add all of the unchanged and untracked, or all the changed and untracked files in that directory as well. However, there are some limitations to that. I recommend using git add -a when you want to add all files and subdirectories. That is the proper way to do it. Okay, so you git add to add untracked files and to add changes on your files. And then of course, when you are ready to commit, git commit -m, and then you put in the message in between quotes here, I made a change, like so. Okay, that's how you make commits. Woo, we're going, I know. Okay, and then the last thing here I want to recap on is, after you've made those changes, you can always look and see git log, and you can see all the different commits that you made by typing in git log, and you can check out new branches by typing in git checkout. and you can type in the branch name like master, or if you want to check out a specific commit, you can just copy the first 7 letters or the first 7 digits or the whole thing, and you can now check out that previous version. So those are the basics of Git, okay? Very powerful. Already with this knowledge right here, you can start tracking your code and prevent yourself from having mistakes. Now, we haven't talked about pushing this up to a server and pulling down changes, which we will talk about in later videos here, but this is just the basics. So what I want you to do is from now on in every single project, git init whatever project you're working on and start adding files and making changes. A lot of new developers will commit before they add, and you can't do that. You've got to add before you commit, and always, always, always type in git status. Before you add, type in git status. Before you commit, type in git status. This will tell you exactly where your code is. And sometimes people forget to do things and they make mistakes and then they go on and overwrite code. So always do git status to see the current status of your changes and your repository. That's it for now. Mark Price at devslopes.com. Let's move forward. And remember, to get your free live help, go to devslopes.com and click on the chat room. We have thousands of students in there helping each other out. Also click on the forums. This is where you can search for answers to your code problems, and you can also post your own issues. So head on over now.